afternoon. I'm Mrs. Florence Imolari. How has been the break during the lockdown? I'm sure you are enjoying it. All right. Last 2 weeks we had presentation on summary, but this week we'll be having presentation on comprehension. And our objective is that students will be able to read and answer comprehension passages. Now, for you to be able to answer comprehension questions, there are rules to observe. First, read the passage. Next, read the questions so as to have what to look out for. Next, read the passage again and then look out for the answers from the passage read. After that, when you want to write your answers need not be written in sentences unless otherwise stipulated. In other words, if you are not asked to write in sentences, you can choose to write in clauses, in phrases, or even a word. Words or phrases expected to replace words or expressions in the passage must fit in perfectly in terms of tense, number or class of word. How do I mean? If the word given is in the present tense, the answer that you must give must be in the present tense. If it is in the plural, the answer you must give must be in the plural. And if it is a verb, for example, your answer must be a verb so that it can fit in as used in the passage. Remember, only one correct word or phrase should be written. Don't write more than two. Only the one you are very sure of must be written. Now let's read and answer the questions on this passage. I quickly told my mother everything I knew. We saw ourselves in a difficult and dangerous situation. About one thing, my mother was determined. She would not lose the money that the captain owed her. It belongs to me and belongs to you, Jim. We'll have that chest open, so we must get the key. On the floor close to the captain's hand, there was a little round of paper, blackened on one side. It was the black spots. And on the other side, somebody had written, "You have till 10 o'clock tonight." I began to look for the key. It was on a bit of dirty string round his neck. I cut it with his knife, and we hurried upstairs to the little room where he had slept so long, and where his box had stood since the day he arrived. "Give me the key," said my mother, and she quickly turned it and threw open the chest. Inside, we found all sorts of things: a bar of silver, a pair of very fine pistols, an old clock, some things looking like papers tied up in cloth, and a bag of coins that sounded like gold. "I'm an honest woman," said my mother. "I'll have what is owed me, and not a penny more. Hold my bag." And she began to count over the amount of the captain's debts from the sailor's bag into the one that I was holding. It was difficult because the coins were of all countries and sizes. There were very few English pounds. When we were about halfway through, I suddenly put my hand on her arm. I heard a sound that filled me with fear, the tapping of the blind man's stick on the frozen road. I drew nearer and nearer while we sat holding our breath. Then it sounded a sharp on the inn door. We could hear the handle being turned and the boat shaking as the blind man tried to enter. Then there was a long silence. At last, the tapping began again and died slowly away. But my mother would not take more than was owed her. She went on counting. A low whistle sounded at a distance. That was enough for both of us. I'll take this for my share, I said, and I seized the papers. We left the candle by the open chest, opened the door, and ran away from the house as fast as we could move. Less than halfway to the village, the sound of several running footsteps came to our ears. We looked and saw that one of the newcomers carried a lamp. "My dear," said my mother suddenly, "take the money and run on. I feel faint." Fortunately, we were just at the little bridge. I helped her to the edge of the bank. There she did faint and fell on my shoulder. I do not know how I found the strength to do it, but I dragged her down the bank and under the ark. We have read the passage the first time. Now we will take the questions. The first question is, who is the writer of this story? B. Where is the captain? What happened to him? How do you know? C. What 5 things are contained in the chest? D. What proof was there that the woman was honest? E. Which currency would the woman have preferred? How do you know? F. How do you know they were not captured or harmed? G. Why we sat holding our breath? I of G. What grammatical name is given to this expression as it is used in the passage? I of G. What is its function? H. For each of the following words, find another word or phrase which means the same and can replace it as it is used in the passage. I. Situation. I. Determined. I. Chest. IV. Sorts. V. And honest. And VI. Fortunately. Now, I will give you some few minutes to read the passage again before we start answering the questions. Welcome back as we continue with the comprehension questions. In order to remind you, the first question is, who is the writer of this story? The writer of the story is Jim. How do you know that? Remember that his mother fainted. He had to drag her under the ark in order for them to be protected. And so, the mother couldn't have written the story. So, it was Jim who wrote the story. The second question is, where is the captain? What happened to him? How do you know? The second question has 3 questions in one, and you are to answer them the way they are. The answer is on the floor. If you go to the second paragraph of the passage read, you will see the answer there. On the floor close to the captain's hand, there was a little round of paper, blackened on one side. It was the black spot. And on the other side, somebody had written. Somebody couldn't have written anything for the captain if he was not on the floor. The second question to question B, he was dead. He was dead. And that was why they could enter his room. And the last question, how do you know? He was lifeless. You can only trample on a lifeless person's property. Now, question C. What 5 things are contained in the chest? A bar of silver, an old clock, a pair of very fine pistols, a bag of coins, and things like papers. You don't need to copy everything in that particular paragraph because the answer is in just a particular paragraph. You are to copy only what they have there. For example, you have something like things like papers tied to a cloth. Tied to a cloth is not necessary. What is necessary is those things that look like papers, and that is what you should list. So you list only things that are salient, important things that are salient, and do away with the ones that are not necessary. We will stop answering the questions here so that you will have something to do at home. And so for your assignment, you will have to read the passage again and then answer questions D to G. I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Is this safe? Let me check. Yeah, let's not say anything for this. Yes. Sit down next.